If you're like me, you're trying to grow as much delicious organic vegetables as you can. And in order to do that, you really need to plan ahead. And why is that? Essentially, it's because vegetables don't grow overnight. And so timing is everything. That is the big why for why you should plan the entire season ahead of time. So let's just take a look at why timing is everything. So think about growing some peas. Now, two things about peas. One is that the days to maturity are about 50 days. It depends on what kind of variety you grow. And then the other thing is that a pea plant stops producing at a maximum temperature, sometime around 75 degrees Fahrenheit. And so if you're living, let's say, in the Northeast, this is maybe close to what I would grow in Brooklyn, I would want to get my plants in the ground as soon as possible to maximize that yield because there's a hard stop when sometime around June, end of June, middle of June, it starts to get about 75 degrees and my peas stop growing. So I want to get those in the ground as soon as possible so I can get as many weeks of harvest as possible. So in New York, I might be able to get my plants in the beginning of April. It might be a little bit later, it just depends. And so every week that you wait to plant, the you're basically losing one less week of harvest. So after that date, wherever it turns 75, you start losing harvest. So let's say I don't plant, here I'm planting on April 1st. Let's say now I wait until April 8th. I just lose 1 week of harvest because it takes that long for my peas to grow to maturity. So every week you wait is 1 week less of peas in the spring. So remember, timing is everything, right? So the first tip to ensure that you're doing everything right for the season, you're planning well for the whole season, is to be ready. So you want to get your planting beds ready for that thaw. So whatever types of planting beds that you're going to put into the ground, make sure they are ready to go. And so you want to gather your resources. Maybe it's leaves, dried leaves, because you need a lot of dried organic matter to create compost or mulch. And in some places, the leaves look a little different. Maybe they look like palm leaves, and palm leaves don't fall all the time. So you want to have somewhere to store all that organic matter once it falls to the ground. And so you're going to be ready, you're going to have a place to store all that material because guess what? You need compost in order to grow vegetables, and you need about 2 inches of compost each year. So that is about 0.1667 cubic feet of compost per square foot. And that's about 0.33 cubic feet of organic material per square foot because when you're growing compost, when you're creating compost, that material basically dries up, shrinks to about 50%. So you need quite a bit of organic material per square foot. What does that look like? For a 4 foot by 8 foot planting bed, you need about 10 cubic feet of materials or 3.5 cubic yards of materials. That's organic materials that you could store somewhere, be ready to compost it. Maybe you can compost it. I know a lot of people might be under the snow in when it's in the not growing season. But maybe as the snow starts to thaw, you could start to create your compost between that time and when the ground totally thaws so that you're ready to put those first plants in the ground. And so the other tip is to be ready, gather your resources. If you're going to build any planting beds, any compost bins, have your wish list ready so that if you're driving by, you see this pile of old pallets, you can pick it up, take it with you. Gather your other resources. If you see a neighbor who has some bamboo and you say, hey, I could really use some bamboo to build some trellises, so what building supplies do you need? And start gathering them before the season starts so you're ready to go right when that season kicks off, right when the first thaw hits. You want to get things in the ground as soon as possible because remember, timing is everything. Now, here we're going to go deeper into that timing is everything. If you're going to be planning multiple plantings to maximize your yield throughout the season, you want to plan your whole season and you want to get as many rotations of crops in the ground as possible so you can get as much food out of the ground as possible. So think about arugula. And arugula, days to maturity, it varies. Sometimes you can get a variety that's 38 days, sometimes it's 45 days. I just picked 42 days, somewhere in the middle. So let's say you're trying to get multiple plantings in the ground. How many growing cycles can you fit into your season? Well, it depends on two things, right? The first thing it depends on is the growing cycle of the arugula. So in this case, we're talking about 8 weeks where we put the plants, we broadcast our seeds, and we wait several weeks. And then basically after, so we wait 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. On the 6th week, we basically harvest. We harvest for 3 weeks, and then we can broadcast right back into the same bed. We can pull that arugula out and broadcast right back in. So that is an 8-week cycle. for growing arugula. So the next step is how many times can we do that within a season? Well, it depends how many growing weeks we have in our season. Let's say we have 32 weeks. Well, 8 weeks, it's a nice little equation there. We can get 4 growing cycles in throughout the season. Now, the trick is that when you're in a colder climate or when the fall starts to happen, crops grow in a little bit slower. So that last cycle, it's going to be tricky to get it in potentially. So you want to watch that timing. So let's say you have less number of weeks than that. Let's say you have 28 weeks instead of 32 weeks. What do you do? Well, there's a couple things you could do. One thing you could do is harvest for just 2 weeks instead of 3 weeks. So each week that you harvest, the crop grows in about 50% less than it did the first time around. And so each week that you harvest, you're getting a little less arugula. So you probably will get more arugula if you harvest for just 2 weeks and do that 4 times over the growing season than if you were to do 3 growing cycles where you were harvesting 3 weeks and you just didn't have time to plant that last succession. That would be my recommendation. Or you might decide that you might look and see, after 5 weeks, instead of the 6 weeks that we were waiting to harvest, you may see that that arugula might be ready because you might have found a variety that's ready after 38 days, and maybe at 35 days it's close to ready. So you could harvest after 5 weeks instead of after 6, and you could still get your 3 weeks of harvest in, and it would be a 7 week cycle. 7 times 4 would be 28 weeks in the growing cycle. So maximizing your yield means knowing how many weeks you have in the growing season and then fitting your crops into that growing season ahead of time. Plan this all ahead of time because timing is everything, right? Now, the third tip to getting all your crops in the ground and getting the most amount of harvest is ordering your seeds like a pro. Now, this is more about saving money than anything else. But think about that previous tip, and you've planned out your growing season. You know exactly what you're planting where. You know how many harvests you're doing. And this means that you can figure out how many seeds you need. So you can order all of your seeds up front. And oftentimes, when you order all of your seeds up front, you might get a discount. You might get a discount on shipping. You might order in bulk and get discounts, which is what I'm going to show you here. So if you're thinking about that arugula example, basically, you might have seen me do this math before. 250 seeds per square foot is a nice number of seeds to broadcast in order to get a nice lush coat of arugula to grow in. And that's 1 seed per every ½ inch, which is about the size of a small pinky fingernail. And so for 30 square feet, let's say, I'm just kind of pulling this number out of my own crop plan. If you have an area that's 30 square feet and you do 4 successions, if you do that math, it means you're going to need 30,000 seeds. That's a lot of seeds, right? And if you go to a website where you're ordering seeds, what you'll notice, and this is Johnny's, what you'll notice is that they sell packets and they sell ounces, pounds, up to 25 pounds because they're selling for farmers and for gardeners. And so farmers might buy in that 25-pound range. Now, some things that you need to know when you click the more details on the description of this particular arugula, you find out that a packet of seeds is 500 seeds, and a 1 ounce is 15,200 seeds. So look at the difference in price there and look at the difference in number of seeds. So you already save a lot of money if you're thinking about ordering seeds in bulk. Now I need about 30,000 seeds per season. So what I have 2 options here. Uh, I could basically buy 2 ounces, and I could do that. 2 times 773 would be 1546 for 30,400 seeds. Or option B, I could go down and I could get the quarter pound, which is more than I need. It's 60,800 seeds, but I could get that for less than I would get the 2 ounces. So here I am getting 4 times, or I'm sorry, double the number of seeds, and I'm getting it for a slightly discounted price. So what I would choose is I would choose option B, and I would save seeds for at least 2 seasons, and I'm saving essentially $16.77 if you do all that math. Now you could go even farther because arugula seeds, if you store them properly in a refrigerator, in a cool, darker place, you can save arugula seeds for several years and they're very viable. So you could actually save quite a bit of money by going up in scale and ordering more. So you could order in bulk, and here, just take a look at the price per pound when you start to order in bulk. So with the initial 1 ounce, I would need to do 16, there's 16 ounces in a pound. So that's $94 a pound versus when you look down the list and you see all the different per pound prices, versus if I get 25 pounds, which is a lot of seed, by the way, it's $39 per pound. It's a huge savings. It's almost 60% savings. So you can make the choice here of how much you want to order at one time and save money. Now, notice if you're a gardener and you're always buying little packets of seeds, notice how much you're buying seeds per pound from these seed manufacturers. So and of course, it's always an option to save your own seeds, but for things like arugula, sometimes you'll get a lot more out of buying them in bulk versus, let's say, I might save my seeds for my tomatoes and my squashes and my watermelons, but I might choose for my greens things that I broadcast a whole lot of seed, like 30,000, 60,000 seeds in a season. I might want to order in bulk and save. So, what do you do if you want to buy in bulk but you're by yourself? Find some friends, find some neighbors who want to plant their gardens, make them smile, share those savings with your friends and neighbors. So, those are 3 tips to help you think about planning out your season, why it's important to plan the whole season ahead of time, what you gain from it, how you're going to be able to grow more food and save some money if you plan your whole season ahead of time and you're ready. So, when the season comes, you know what to plant, you know when to plant it, and you know how much to plant. So that's what you're essentially creating, is a roadmap for the whole season. So you're going to create that schedule, you're going to tell yourself where you're going to plant it, exactly the dates you're going to plant it, so you have your seeds ready, your transplants ready. If you know how many plants you're planting, then you can order your seeds all in one, and you might be able to get some sort of discount by ordering them all at once. And if you want to know more about creating that roadmap for the whole season, it's called a crop plan. You can check out bkfarmyards.com/crop plan, where I talk about my online crop planning classes. Thanks for tuning in.